you may know our next guest as Bowzer from Sha-Na-Na, or from his many television appearances, including the show he hosted. But John Bauman is also an activist of long-standing and good repute. He is a senior advisor to Social Security Works. He is president of the Social Security Works Political Action Committee. He is the veteran of dozens of political campaigns, and he is calling in now from Alaska. First of all, John Bowzer Bauman, thanks for coming back on the program.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's great to hear you. I'm in Anchorage. You're right.
Well, I'm glad I got something right. So tell us, what are you doing up there?
Yeah, what am I doing here? Well, actually, I routinely come to Alaska every summer for pleasure. I enjoy wildlife photography. I love the state. It's, for my money, the most beautiful state in the country. But this time, I'm really here for another purpose. I'm here to try to help activists in Alaska put pressure on Lisa Murkowski to make sure that she votes no on any reconciliation bill that will cut Medicaid or Medicare. And as you know, everything that's been presented of late cuts Medicaid to ribbons. So far so good with Senator Murkowski. She did speak out the other day as a no on the motion to proceed on next week's repeal without replace. So we need to make sure that she sticks to that. She has a little bit of a history of waffling, saying one thing and then ending up doing another. So that's really the purpose. I'm doing an appearance at the Senior Center in Anchorage at noon today. And we are going to, get everybody's cell phones out and just start calling Senator Murkowski's office. And I'm going to leave the activists here with instructions to call 5 times a day and make sure that their presence is felt.
And Lisa Murkowski, of course, is Alaska's Republican senator. So it's good that she is expressing disapproval and reluctance to go along with this. But as you have said, she's sometimes done that in the past and then fallen in line, as, to be honest, is the case with a lot of Republicans. So I think the other thing that you know very well is that, and I think most of our listeners know, but I want to reiterate, is that elected officials, senators, Congress people, others, they really do resonate with it. They understand phone calls from their constituents, and phone calls from their people are always saying, well, what can I do? Calling your senator or representative, I've always said, has a big impact. Would you agree with that, right?
Calling is at the end of the day, calling is the best. And we have adopted this strategy this entire time. And by the way, we're also not ignoring Senator Dan Sullivan, who hasn't taken a position on this. He is actually a possibility. From what I understand, his wife is Native American. This set of bills, every one of them does massive damage to the Native community in Alaska, which is very sizable. So we're also going to be calling Senator Sullivan. But, Senator Murkowski is the more obvious target for this kind of thing. Calls are very effective. The staff has to log them. The staff hates them. They have to report them to the senator unless instructed otherwise. And they do make an impact. And if you notice, so a nuanced thing to notice is that when people do come out, when elected officials do come out at the end of the day and say, I'm voting against this or for this, because they very often say, because my phone calls ran 1,000 to 1 against. Phone calls really make an impact. Office visits are good too, but office visits are, obviously much more cumbersome for the activists. So if you can go to the office, that's great. But if you can't go to the office, make the calls and just keep making them and keep making your voice heard. It's been very clear in this particular fight that activists all over America have made a massive impact on legislators, and most of the legislators are publicly acknowledging that.
Well, that's great to hear. And tell us, John Bauman, give us just an overview, if you would, about what it is the Republicans are trying to do here.
Well, you know what they're trying to do, Richard Eskow, better than virtually anybody. They're trying to give a massive tax cut to their donors. The amazing thing about this entire health care bill is that it has nothing to do with health care. A health care bill would actually give people health care or improve people's health care. This is an effort, not to get too far into the weeds, to lower the baseline so that they can deliver the massive tax cut to their wealthy donors that's to come. And that's really what this health care bill is about, the so-called health care bill. It's a scam.
Yeah.
So we've got to get back to the business of actually improving the health care system that we have, the Affordable Care Act, which is essentially, I describe as health insurance reform. That's really what it is. But it definitely was a series of steps in the right direction of stopping insurance companies from doing horrible things to people. We need to make it work a little bit better. Most people know the various formulas. The various formulas that would make it better are pretty obvious. Some of us think there should be more steps taken towards public options. Many of us, most of us, towards a public option or lowering the Medicare age, steps toward Medicare for all,
right.
Even as part of this particular battle. But, that's the business at hand. We have to improve the Affordable Care Act at this point with a Republican Congress. That's probably realistically what the best that we can expect to do as we fight for Medicare for all, the path towards Medicare for all down the road.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And while we're at it, while we're fighting that fight, we have to protect the people who are being helped by the Affordable Care Act, and we have to protect the people on Medicaid, because you've been fighting the Republicans a long time. You know that Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, Mitch McConnell, that these people have been trying to destroy Medicaid and Medicare for many, many years.
Right.
That ideologically they hate those programs.
Right, and it's ideology and it's obviously money.
Right.
I mean, in most of the talks that I give, including the one I'm about to this afternoon, it is interesting that people still at the end of the day wonder, okay, if turning Medicare into a voucher system, let's say, is such a bad idea, why does anyone want to do it? And you actually have to walk people through the process by which Paul Ryan knows that if he can turn Medicare into a voucher system, meaning your voucher runs out and you got to go back to private insurance, the insurance lobby is going to love him for that. The amounts of money that will come his way are unfathomable. If Social Security were privatized, meaning, what does that mean? It means the money gets turned over in whole or in part to Wall Street. Wall Street's going to love you for that. There's going to be so much money to run your campaigns and a nice, cushy job like Eric Cantor took, when he lost his primary and was sad for probably 10 minutes and then got a $1.2 million job at a Wall Street firm that he'd been sucking up to for his entire career in the House. That's really how it works, everybody. It's follow the ideology in Paul Ryan's time at the Keggers in college, but it's also just follow the money and follow how much money they're going to get out of these scams that really end up hurting people. Medicaid is the one that's really on the table right now, as we know. $772 billion cut out of Medicaid in the current DCRA. Well, I don't know if it's current anymore. We can't even call it current, but that was the final number. And that's, in essence, the literal destruction of the Medicaid program. Here in Alaska, there are about 750,000 residents, 740 some odd thousand residents of and some very odd residents of Alaska, and 185,000 of them are on Medicaid programs. So this is a massive. This state, I love this state, and it's got really fascinating people, and it's just gorgeous. If you've never been here, you must visit Alaska. But this state is really, really, really going to be hurt by these Republican proposals. And ironically, it keeps kind of electing Republicans who don't often do the right thing for their constituents.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that a little bit, John Bauman. It's interesting to me because I gather that one of the reasons why Republicans tend to do so well in Alaska is maybe it's something to do with the frontier spirit and the spirit of the West or what have you. But why is it that I don't want to say what's the matter with Alaska, but like what's the matter with Kansas? But why is it that what do Democrats need to? It's changing the subject a little bit, but what do Democrats need to do, in your opinion, to sort of capture more of the Alaska vote?
First of all, you're right. There's a frontier mentality. There's an independent streak, that's palpable in Alaskans, and it's actually also appealing. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things you like about Alaskans.
Right.
So it leads them away, I think, to some extent from the notion that the federal bureaucracy in Washington is going to help you with things. On the other hand, there is this very socialistic oil money check that everybody cashes every year, which is it's probably the most socialistic event in all of America, and everybody's happy to cash that check here in Alaska. Right. So it's sort of an interesting paradox. But I think the main thing, there is significant activism here, and it is moving more in a Democratic direction over the years, or at least in an independent direction, and I think away from the old Republican establishment. Even Lisa Murkowski ran as an independent. She lost the Republican primary and ran as an independent write-in candidate, and somehow got reelected as a write-in candidate, where people had to spell the name Murkowski, or at least make it legible enough that somebody could say, okay, I get it. You said Murkowski. A lot of the Democrats' quandary here, I think, just depends on finding the right people. Mm-hmm. I mean, we came up here a couple of years ago and gave Mark Begich a champion award. Former Senator Mark Begich, who may very likely run for governor next. We don't know, but he still has. He's a young enough guy. He's got a big future here. And Mark Begich is the kind of Democrat that Alaskans really like. So he gives you an idea of the kind of candidates that have to be found to turn Alaska blue. It's not that far away.
Right. And that's good to hear. And going back, just to wrap up, my final comment on the issue at hand of Medicaid in particular. A lot of people don't know this, but you know it, John, and I'm sure you're mentioning it in your talks, that that Medicaid, among other things, that 65% of people in nursing homes count on Medicaid to provide them with that benefit, that many people have older relatives, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whatever, who depend on Medicaid for their care. And cutting it is a brutal thing to do to all sorts of people, including the elderly.
And interesting that you bring that up, because the national number is around 64, 65%. The number here in Alaska is that Medicaid is the primary payer for actually 79% of long-term care here. So, because remember, this state has a large Medicaid population to begin with. So, this whole issue, and Alex Lawson, exec director of Social Security Works, and I, going around the country on our Hands Off Medicaid and Medicare tour, have been emphasizing to everybody, and it's eye-opening. It's just like explaining why follow the money about the voucher system, and people go like, oh, I never thought of that. Most people still don't know that Medicaid pays for the vast majority of long-term care, which affects the vast majority majority of American families and will affect more and more and more in the years to come. So that's one of those epiphany kinds of things where suddenly everybody goes, oh, I didn't know that that was Medicaid that paid for long-term care, and, you know, my father's in a nursing home or my grandfather's in a nursing home, or I'm, you know, projecting into the future, we're all going to be looking at some form of long-term care. And of course, by the way, the real long-term care we're looking at is people being able to stay in their homes.
Right, which is Medicare.
It's been a big issue in this healthcare fight. The ADAPT people have been just spectacular, you know, demonstrating for the right to be able to stay in your homes, which, by the way, is cheaper than going into a long-term facility. So these are all fights that we're having right now. We have to have them. We have to fight as hard as we can, make sure that nothing like the American Health Care Act or the so-called Better Care Reconciliation Act passes, and then we've got to all get together and figure out what we really can get done to stabilize the progress that we've made so far, and then we will move further towards Medicare for all, and we will have a much better country for it.
I couldn't put it better myself. So thanks for the great work you're doing up there, John Bowzer, Bauman, musician, entertainer, activist, advisor to Social Security Works, and lover of Alaska. Thanks for calling into the program.
Well, it's my pleasure. I do want to share with people that in 106-degree heat in Las Vegas the other day outside Senator Dean Heller's office, we sang the following song. Good night, Trump care. Well, it's time to go. So we're going to be saying good night to Trump care, and Greece for peace, don't come back.
And I never heard you sing the tenor part of that song before. So, okay, another groundbreaking moment on the Zero Hour. So thanks, John, and we will be right back after this. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is the Zero Hour.